Hello, it's Alex from the infant feeding team. It is Thursday afternoon, 2:30, and it's our normal slot. We're all about feeding today. So anything to do with feeding and early days with babies, any questions you've got, pop them through. We have see if we see some of our regulars. I can see some people popping up already. Lovely to see you all coming. So I'm on my own again, hopefully the last time. Next week, hopefully it'll be me and Naomi, our normal double act. Much easier when there's two of us. So lovely to see lots of people coming up. Give me a thumbs up that you can hear me. So I can see it's coming up on my screen here too. Let me know you can hear me all right. I thought we'd talk about how things have changed over the years. I had a lovely chat with a mummy this morning that we've known since her baby was very small, and we were having a chat about how her baby was growing this morning, and she's doing an amazing job. Baby's growing beautifully. Oh, lovely, thumbs up just came up. Thank you very much to whoever that was. And we were chatting about how things have really changed, and how since the times when, for instance, I was having my babies, to now, what we're telling mums has really, really changed. And so actually some of you might be coming across that. You might be finding that your mummies are telling you things that don't fit quite with what we're telling you. And I can see that there are big differences. Brilliant. Thank you, Amy, for telling me you can hear me. Thank you so much. And there are big differences between what we've been telling you, in these sessions, and when you meet your community midwives, and all the sort of the different input that you get at the moment has changed to what we were hearing when people like me had our babies in the 90s. Because I had my children in the 90s, so mine are now in their sort of mid to late 20s. So things like babies getting into routines. So we sort of realised that actually babies don't really fit to routines. Breastfed babies need to feed frequently, and all babies, regardless of how they're fed, want to be close, they want to be held, they want to be with you. And I think we've talked about these on these sessions before, that they don't have an understanding that they're safe when they're in a cot, and that you can't spoil them. I know I've said this so many times, and so's Naomi and Hannah whenever we've done these sessions. You can't spoil a newborn baby. You can't spoil a baby really for the first year of life at least, and thereafter. They haven't got the brain capacity. So if somebody's saying to you that you're making a rod for your own back, or you're going to make life difficult for yourself in the future because you're spoiling your baby, let us support you and tell you that's not the case. And the thing about it is actually it goes against the mother's intuition not to meet the baby's needs, not to pick that baby up when they're crying, not to cuddle them as much as they can, and that is completely and utterly normal. So it's just thinking about what's going on there, sort of being aware that what we're told, what I was told as a new mum and what you're being told as a new mum is going to be different. And sometimes what you're hearing from us isn't going to meet what you've heard from your mums and your mother-in-laws, aunts, etc. And that just to bear in mind that what we're telling you is the latest advice. It's well researched. It's grounded in UNICEF and WHO, all the sort of these leading people, and researchers are out there proving that babies just need to be cuddled and loved, and they don't fit routines. And actually we make our lives much more difficult when we try and expect babies to go into routines. I can see questions coming through. And actually I have to just say a big hello to Catherine for last week, because I missed saying hello to her, and she's one of our regulars, so I'm going to say it now. I'm sure she'll come up later and I'll say hello to her again. But I felt so guilty when I looked back over the questions, and she'd been the first person who posted and I'd missed it. So that was a special Catherine. Hello for Catherine. Right, I think this is Jessica, and we've heard from Jessica before, I know. Let me just see what she's saying. She's saying that she's really engorged, baby's 5 days old, still feeding but not draining them enough. I've tried heat and massage and also tried to drain them. Any advice? It's mainly on the outer side of the breast. So day 5, that's pretty much your milk coming in. That's quite normal engorgement. You could try some cold in the between time. So when you're not feeding, try a bit of cold on your breasts, because a lot of what's going on when you've got this breast engorgement in these first few days, somewhere between days 3 and 5, is a lot of vascular, i.e. blood engorgement in the breast, not just milk engorgement. So what you'll find is, even if you express, you may not feel hugely more comfortable. So try a bit of cold on the breasts in between expressing, and see if that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable. Standing in the shower, letting it drip will be really nice. If you get to the point where you're really struggling to get it to come, then the shower is really, really good. I mean, I've been known to sit with mothers with a bowl of warm water and literally lean into the bowl of warm water and then try hand expressing to get the milk moving. If your baby's doing a good job, get your baby to the breast as much as you can. So maybe as much feeding as you can. Get cold on in between times when you're not feeding, and maybe standing in a warm shower just to let it drip. See if that helps, Jessica. I hope it does. But congratulations on having your baby 5 days ago. So I'm sure I recognise your name. I think you've asked things before. So congrats. I hope that helps. Hannah said her baby's 2 weeks old and currently expressing. So she's got a lazy latch and distress when she's trying to breastfeed. She's feeding about 1.5 hours, about 3 ounces. Whoops, that just skipped up. I have to go back to it. Advice to increase to 4, which we've done. He's still feeding 1.5 hours. I'm worried he's wanting to feed too much. Shall we just keep giving express milk on demand? Yes, absolutely. Follow what your baby wants. We're always looking for responsive feeding, that we follow the baby's requests for food on volumes and frequency. It will get easier. I'm just going to move the camera a tiny bit. It will get easier. You know, babies do settle a little bit. They don't go into routines, as I mentioned a minute ago, but you will notice rhythms coming. Your baby does have periods of time in the day where they feed maybe more frequently. Often mums find early evenings, babies feed a lot, and then other parts of the day where they might space their feeds out a little bit more. But let your baby tell you how much they want. 2 weeks, you know, we're pretty much at a full stomach capacity at this stage. So 3 ounces, yeah, it's pretty much what we'd be looking at. So 3 to 4. So, you know, so if we think that stomach capacity is about 80 to 150 millilitres, so 3 ounces is going to be 90 and 4 is going to be 120. So you're pretty much in the normal amount there. So I think, Hannah, it sounds like you're actually doing a great job if you can keep going. But what about trying to get some more help with getting your baby back to the breast? Because that's really tough if you're expressing. It's double the work. You're having to express to meet your baby's needs, and then you're having to feed. So, you know, why don't you try and, I mean, you may have already done it already, but access things like the Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support Group, La Leche League here in Oxford, Abingdon Baby Cafe, or us at the Infant Feeding Team and the Breastfeeding Clinic. So, you know, there's all of us that we could help you if you haven't already accessed that help. But, you know, what you've done is fantastic because you've obviously got an amazing milk supply. And that's the crucial thing. Get your milk supply if you are struggling. If you're having problems in the early days, getting a milk supply, and then we've got time to learn. You get your baby to learn to feed. We've got the options if you've got a milk supply. So Hannah, I think you've done a fab job to get that milk supply up. Now let's see if we can get your baby back to the breast and work on that. Go and access some of those help. And if that's not working, contact the infant feeding team and see how we get on. See if we can help you. I can see more comments coming through. Lovely to see all these messages. As I said before, I get icons on the top of the phone so I can see people coming through, which is lovely to know you're all there. Nikki has said she's got a 4-week baby who's exclusively breastfeeding, 10-pound term baby. Wow, it's a big baby. Not a small one, no, not at all. Cluster feeds from 10 until 2, sometimes 5 to 10 minutes each side, back and forth, and sometimes she'll latch, have a good go for 3 to 5. Gets aggy, squirms, comes off. I need to open up the rest of it. Gets stressed, then she's no longer on. I've tried different positions, laid back to slow the flow as she gulps air. This is when she'll kick and climb up across the tummy to mummy, or laying on my side in compressions. She wriggles, kicks out, grunts, so she's got trapped wind. And tummy ache, it takes a while to pass. Sitting her on my knee, supporting her chin or over my shoulder. Other times, oops, I think I might have skipped down too fast. Sorry about that. Yeah. So other times when she's a good long feed, during this time she'll wind and go up to sleep quite contentedly, but half an hour later will start making noises in her sleep and then sick up all she's had. Oh, poor darling. Other nights she'll feed and go down again for 3/4 of an hour. Doesn't seem to be linked with what I'm eating after keeping a feeding log. No issues feeding during the day. She'll go a good 10 to 20 minutes each time, sometimes just the one side, other times combine both. Right, so if we got the day working, that's really encouraging. That's really good news. I always feel if you've got one bit working, that's great news. So she sipped up a lot of milk after feeding on a few occasions, after being settled, and gets hiccups a lot. Now, so hiccups are normal. So I think we have to go work our way through your questions here, Nikki, because there's quite a few on there. So she's 4 weeks exclusive. She was a big baby when she started. So I'm wondering, you're saying that she's feeding a lot between 10 and 2. I'm wondering where you're feeding. I'm wondering if maybe you're sitting somewhere different that you feed in the day, and maybe that's making a difference, because it's amazing how it can change the way you're bringing the baby to the breast. Because I know we talk about these on these sessions a lot, about how important the positioning and attachment is, and a baby's ability to milk the breast well is really down to how they go on. So it might be that she's not going on quite as well if you're sitting somewhere different, or maybe in bed, and that actually what's happening then is she's not accessing that lovely fatty hind milk part of the feed that tells her that she's full, but she keeps then feeding and looking for more, looking for more, looking for more, and then she's bringing it up because she's had such a stomach full of that sort of slightly more watery, still fantastic milk. I wonder if that's what's going on. So have a look. I mean, you can try all different positions, but the main thing is remembering what I'm always talking about is this picture here, is that your baby's going on in this position. So regardless of whether you're lying on your side, you're laid back, you're sitting up, whatever, this is what we're looking for, that it's always looking like that. And maybe it might be worth you trying, if you are feeding her in a slightly different place, Nikki, maybe this is in bed, I don't know, that you do get up once in a while and just see if it makes it any better. Or just pay attention to what you're doing and make sure, maybe get your partner to video it so you can have a look and see, is it different to what's happening in the day, and see if that's happening. Because that, when a baby's getting a lot of that first part of the milk, they don't know they're full. It's like a meal of lettuce. It's still fantastic. It's great nutrients, but it doesn't have that weight to make her feel her tummy full. And then she's going to keep looking for more and more and more, and then she's sick and she's uncomfortable. Be interesting to know whether she's got colour, her poo changes, whether you've got, more yellowy poos after the day feeds and more yellow poos after the night feeds. But just a few things to unwind there, really. Sounds like you're doing all the right things to winter. Hiccups are normal. We're not really worried about those. Yeah, I think really I would be wanting, I know I say this all the time, but go back and have a look at positioning and attachment, Nikki. See if that helps, if you can really work on that, because it might be you're doing a brilliant job in the day and then at night it's not quite so good, so she's not doing quite so brilliantly. Have a look at that. Nappies would be an indicator as well. If they're more green at periods, sometimes, then that might be an indicator of this getting a bit more of the first part of the milk and not accessing the other part. And it's not to do with time, it's to do with efficiency at the breast, her ability to remove the milk. It goes back to what we've talked about before. I'm looking for my breast. I've lost it. I'll find it in a minute. It's that ability to really milk the breast. It's not just time at the breast. I'll find that breast in a minute. Anyway, so Nikki, good luck with that. If you're still struggling, give us a call or try any of the other places I've just mentioned, OBS, Having a Baby Cafe and the Leche or us. And we can do, I've done 2 Attend Anywhere calls this morning, so we can do video calls, and they work really well, saves you having to leave your house, and we can do them, at our desks, and I've been doing them here from home. So, that's another option, that we can watch what you're doing and see if there's anything we can do to help to make sure things go a bit better for you. But see how you get on, Nikki. Jessica's gone back to say she struggles to get her to latch at times when it's engorged. Yeah, so that's where I would really be recommending, Jessica, a bit of hand expressing. Just try and get some of that milk off, soften the breast up, hop in a hot shower if you can't get it going, and start in the shower. A bit of just gentle massage. And I'm going to look for that breast again. There it is. I thought it'd be there. So thinking about anything that's nice for you. So it could be just, gentle massage, anything, just to get it going. Think about your baby, think how much you love her, smell her head, think of all, do all these things, and that will help get oxytocin flowing and will release the milk. And if you can get a little bit off, you'll be able to get her on. And this is one of the reasons that we really want every single woman to be taught how to hand express, because it's your first aid, and this is exactly when this is so important. And it's much better to be hand expressing this stage than trying to necessarily use a pump, because a pump may not work so well. And your hands, if you think about it, and we think about oxytocin, you get a better response with your fingers against the breast because it's skin to skin, it's tactile. So get the milk moving with your hand, and then get a little bit off, soften the breast up a bit and get your baby on, and then he will do all the rest. So good luck with that, Jessica. I hope it gets a bit better soon. I should come back and say thank you already. Charlie's come up saying her baby's 5 months old and his bottom 2 teeth have come through. It's fine during feeding and it doesn't hurt, but at the very end he clamps down, which is very painful. How can I stop him from doing this? Oh, it is so difficult. It's interesting, I had a conversation this morning with this mummy I was mentioning earlier, and I said exactly this, that many babies are still being fed beyond the time they get teeth, because obviously we're recommending that you're feeding your babies for a minimum of 6 months exclusive, up to a year, and even up to 2 years and beyond, and we know that's beneficial. It is difficult. It's very difficult because, they do, when they're feeding, they put their tongue over their teeth, and that's why you're fine when you're feeding, but it's that coming off is so difficult. They do learn not to do it, but it is terrifically difficult. It's whether you can preempt it, get your finger in quickly and get them off before they do it, or keeping him in really, really close so that he's less likely to do it. Because it tends to be toward the end of the feed. And I'm sure you would tell me that those teeth are needle sharp, aren't they, Charlie? They really are. I really, really feel for you. It's just trying to keep that baby in as close as possible. And if you think the baby's coming towards the end, maybe quickly slide them off before they have a chance to do that. It might be worth having a chat with the La Leche League because they're fabulous. There's lots of mums, lots of peer support mums on there, and I'm sure that they would have some other suggestions as well that they could give you. They're a great organisation, really supportive, and there will be plenty of experienced mums and leaders there who will be able to come up with other ideas as well. But the main thing is, I'm glad you said the feeds are fine, but if you think that it's going to happen, finger in, slide them off, get your baby off at that stage, or keeping your baby in really close. Good luck with it, Charlie. Sorry not to give you more help with that, but I would go post it on a La Leche thing and say what else is anybody else doing with regard to this. So Amy has come up saying her little boy's almost 2 months old. Wow, because we've been hearing from you for a bit as well. Still exclusive breastfeeding, feeding well, fantastic. She's also got daughters of 8 and 5, and her partner's hours have increased at work, night shifts. Oh, you poor love. So juggling the frequent feeding and balancing time with the other children. Tried expressing, but he isn't keen on the bottle at all, so don't want to try and force it. So just some advice, I guess, with juggling both, as all wanting my attention. Thank you. Yes, I think it's trying to make it work for you, isn't it? I mean, you become the most amazing sort of diplomat and juggler of jobs. I can remember sitting with I've got 2 girls and a boy, when mine were little, having a girl on each side and a baby on my lap, reading books at bedtime, because I often found myself at bedtime on my own. So you come up with some fantastic ways of coping. So thinking about it, seeing maybe your partner gives those bottles when your partner's around, so your baby gets used to them, if that's going to be helpful. But if you can fit the breastfeeding round your other 2, that would be great too. Sort of getting them to join in. They can go and grab the books. And I'm sure you've thought about all these things. It's just juggling how to do them. Sort of bathing all 3 together, maybe, if you're bathing them at night. So your 8 and 5-year-old are going to be more independent. You're dealing with the baby. And trying to come up with ways. And it's so difficult at the moment, because I'm sure at other times in our lives when we weren't going through COVID, you may have had maybe a partner or a friend, not partner, so a parent or a friend who could drop in and give you a hand at that difficult time in the evenings. So I think it's coming up and being innovative, really, of things that you can try. You can just carry on seeing whether, so if your baby would take the bottle, if you think that's going to be helpful. As an 8-year-old may be able to help you with maybe even feeding. I don't know. Maybe depends what they're like. I'm 8 years older than my sister, and I just remember that myself. So I'm sorry not to give you lots of great suggestions, but I think it'll be a case of seeing how you get on, and with your 8 and 5-year-old, letting them help you as much as they can. I'm sure they're delighted and loving being big sisters. I'll keep thinking, Amy, and if I think of anything else to suggest, I'll pop it in, and in the meantime I'll move on to the next one. And apologies, I've not come up with lots of answers. So I do feel for you, because I do remember that juggling act in the evenings be really, really challenging. Moving on to Hannah. She said, thank you for the help. Yes, I'm going to seek more help to try breastfeeding again. Brilliant. I think that's a really good idea. Because at the end of the day, you know, when you're breastfeeding, you're just putting that baby to the breast. When you're expressing, you're doing twice the work. It's so hard. Amy's come back and said, what was the position we were talking about this morning? It's completely gone from me. Oh, we were talking about the grown-up position. So we were talking about when your babies get bigger. So, you know, as babies get much bigger, and Amy's baby Leo is a lovely big boy now. And I'm just going to I'm trying to move the camera if I can. Not so easy on this because it's on my phone. So when we do, actually I can show it on a picture. It's the easiest way of doing it. So when we talk about the grown-up position, we talk about this sort of position, and I don't know if you can see, but this baby's quite a big baby and it's breastfeeding, and the way this mummy's doing it is that she's got her legs up and the baby's bottom is dropped into the gap between her legs. So the baby's legs go over one side, the bottom drops down, which takes the length of the baby because the baby's getting so big, allowing the head to be at the breast height. So we call that the grown-up position. So you could think about using maybe a, you know, if you're out and about, if you're allowed to go out and about, using your pram, putting your leg on the pram. Let me move the camera so that you'd be putting your leg, having your leg up, so in this sort of position, and that the baby is sitting in the lap in this sort of position. So they're sitting facing, so the mum's arm is here behind the shoulders and the baby's dropped into the lap here. So we tend to call that the grown-up position because it's allowing for this baby that's really got bigger, and you're trying to make up for this extra length of baby. So that may help. So say it's having your baby sort of quite upright and their bottoms dropped into your lap and their legs coming over your legs, and then they just turn their heads towards the mum's breast. So I know we always talk about having head and body in line, but as they get bigger, they're able just to turn their torsos, and that works just fine too. So I hope that helps, Amy. Amy's come back. He also screams every time I put him down and stops literally the moment he's picked up. Oh, Amy, that's tough. Yeah, so I'm sure you're probably already trying a sling. Slings are obviously very handy, give you a hands-free, make life a little bit easier. One of my infant feeding colleagues, in fact two I can think of, in La Leche, so both of them La Leche leaders, have had small babies from the time that I've known them, and they've used slings and been able to, and then when they've had the baby on the front the majority of the time, and then pop them on the back when they need to be doing something that wouldn't allow for the baby to be in front of them. So getting really adept with a sling can be really, really handy, and free you up to have your hands free for your girls, to do other things. And they do love being, those babies love being close. As you've said, your baby doesn't want to be put down, and that's completely normal. It's a really normal way to be. You may already be using a sling, but maybe, you know, research slings that you can then pop on the back as well to give you your hands free to deal with the girls, because often when babies are close, we talk about that responsiveness, that relationship building, they like that closeness and comfort, and that meets the baby's needs. But that is really tough. I really get it. You know, if you've got a baby that won't go down and you've got two other children, and they do need you too, you know, they all need you. If there is any one of you, as was said this morning, one of the calls, why don't we have more hands? We could do with more hands as mummies. We really could do with them. I would suggest trying a sling if you haven't already tried it, Amy. See if you can get that working for you, especially one that you can put on your back as well. It's quite a skill, but it's really good when it works. Donna Marie has said, just saying I'm pregnant, but finding these videos super helpful, and you're so much nicer than my midwife. Oh, Donna Marie, I'm sorry that that's how you feel. Our midwives tend to be very lovely. And obviously it depends where you have your baby. The likelihood of you having your own midwife is slim. I'm sure that, because we've got some lovely midwives in the trust, some really fabulous ones. We'll ask any questions you can think of that we can answer in here, and we'd be more than happy. Yeah, good luck with it. She said, oh, and she's added a bit more. Watching these has made me feel more confident about giving it a go, and that's what this is all about. I mean, these are about giving you an opportunity to ask questions, to for us to give you information, because we know that there's, it's been really difficult these months since March with very limited contacts. Antenatal classes haven't been happening in the same way, and the idea of doing all these lives is that it gives you fast track to come and ask those questions that you might have. And no question is too silly. That's the one thing I know you always hear this in these sort of forums, but it isn't, because if you're thinking it, someone else is thinking it. So do keep the questions coming. They're really good questions. Nikki's come. Sorry, lots in one comment. Thank you. It was a lot, Nikki. I was just struggling to get through, and I didn't want to miss anything. I was just downstairs. I've been going down the last couple of nights, making the room like it is the day. What you've said about the amount she's taking more makes the amount she's taking makes more sense. Is there a way to know the difference between the fore and the hind milk? Nappies are the same day and night, although I find she struggles to go properly in the evening, nighttime, so not sure if that contributes to her being unsettled. It might do, and some babies are really dramatic about sort of pooing. They make a right song and dance if they're if their gastrointestinal system's going, and they really let you know about it. So some babies get very, very upset. Some just poo and then nothing about it apart from a dirty nappy, and others really are quite drama queens about it. But they're all normal babies in that respect. There isn't a difference. I mean, I don't know if I've got my picture done. I'm not terribly well organised for pictures today. I had a picture before of the fore milk and the hind milk. Anyway, so it's all the same in that what we expect a baby to get is a really good balance of the fore watery part, first part of the milk, and the fatter part of the latter part of the milk. That what we won't see is a difference from one to the other. If you were to hand express off quickly at the beginning of a feed and then hand express off at the end of a feed, the likelihood is you would see that what you hand expressed off at the end would be probably a bit thicker in consistency than what you hand express off right at the beginning. When you leak, you tend to leak the fore milk, that's what tends to leak. The hind milk doesn't leak, which is why we would normally recommend using a pump as well and not just collecting leaked milk. Both of it, all of it, and it all becomes combined. It just merges throughout the feed. You can't tell one from the other as such. All of it is important because you have water-soluble vitamins, lots of sugar in that fore milk. You have lovely high fat content in the hind milk. But it really just merges throughout the feed. And as long as a baby is on well, they can get it regardless of whether they're on for 5 or 40 minutes. So although I've mentioned fore milk and hind milk, we don't get really hung up about it. What we do think is that if a baby doesn't go on well, they don't access the hind milk as well. They don't milk the breast as efficiently, which is why it's so important to get positioning and attachment right. So I hope that helped with that, explaining that. So we tend not to worry about it too much. So that's that. Charlie's just come back and said, thank you. Hattie said she's 39 weeks pregnant and collecting colostrum really successfully. Doesn't seem very thick and more like watery milk. Is this normal and correct? Just want to check. Thanks, Hattie. Whatever you're getting is spot on. It varies so tremendously. Go and have a look online. Put colostrum in. Put human milk colostrum, because otherwise you'll get cow's milk colostrum. But put, and you will see that it varies tremendously. Some people's is almost sort of like clear. Some people's is deep, deep, deep yellow. And that's beta carotene in there. And it'll be your diet will affect it, but not in a negative way. So you will produce perfect colostrum for your baby. So don't worry about it. Whatever you're getting is normal. And what's really interesting is when we're watching mums expressing, we'll often see that from the same breast, from different pores in the nipple, because the nipple has many pores, as my colleague Hannah describes it, the nipple is more like a watering can than a bottle teat. It doesn't have one hole, it has numerous holes. So and they're called pores. So when a mum is hand expressing, as she's hand expressing from the breast, she'll see colostrum coming from different pores, and it will vary from one pore to another. It can look different, and that's what's so amazing. So whatever you produce will be perfect for your baby, so don't worry, it's absolutely spot on, and it's great that you're having joy doing it already. Please don't bring it all in though. The one thing I will say is, I've said this every week, don't bring it all in when you come in. Bring a little bit. Bring it frozen and bring it in a cool box with ice blocks. We have had some real problems with it, with people bringing in lots of colostrum. It defrosts because we haven't got it into a fridge or a freezer. We have got access to a freezer, but we have more of an issue with, we've got access to fridges, but more of an issue with freezers. To bring in the minimum, bring in only a small amount, and if need be, your partner goes back and gets some more. Because remember, your baby doesn't need much in those early days and those early hours. So you might really be delighted that you've got some colostrum later, but the first 24 hours or so you're not going to need much, so bring in a very small amount. Otherwise, if it's defrosted, we have to use it within 12 hours or throw it away, and that is heartbreaking. So good luck with that, Hattie. Keep going and stay in touch if you need our help. Nikki's come back and said thank you, and Hattie said thank you. Brilliant, thank you. So no more questions for the moment. We'll give you a bit more time. It's only 3 o'clock, so we've got another half an hour or so. So I was talking at the top of the session about thinking about what we hear that's different. So, I can remember when my children were born, and my eldest daughter was born in 94, she's going to be 27 soon, that we were weaning at 6 months. And we know now that actually that is not beneficial for babies. Babies really do need exclusive feeding, milk feeding, for the first 6 months of their lives, because if you start introducing other foods sooner than that, then you find that that actually all you're doing is displacing milk, because they haven't got the maturity of the gut to take in what they need from the other foods that you might be giving your baby. So even when you start introducing solid foods at 6 months, that food we say is just for fun. So food before 1 is just for fun. So the milk feeds are still the main source of their calories right up to the age of a year, and thereon breastfeeding goes alongside other foods as well. It still has a really important part to play, but up until 1, it is the majority of the calories that a baby gets. So thinking, from when I started with my children, and then as I said, I was chatting to a mother this morning about how things have changed, and her mother wasn't at a similar age to me. So this is where your parents might be coming from, is that, we were weaning at 3 months. We were expecting our babies to go into routines, and we now know through all the research that's been done since that this isn't the best for the baby. Babies need milk feeds up to 6 months. They really don't need anything else. It's absolutely all they need. Breast milk continues to change its constituents to meet the baby's needs all the way up to 6 months. So we don't need to be giving anything else. And with formula milk, you're going to have to increase the volumes over time, because it's a finite amount of nutrients and a finite amount of liquid, but it will still meet the baby's needs. So I can see a few more things have just come through. Hattie has said that she's using 10ml syringes, so how many should I bring? Wow, we usually use 1ml syringes. Hattie, you're on fire. That's amazing. Bring only 1. Don't bring any more. If you're using 10ml syringes, then bring only 1. You're obviously getting a lot. The other thing to say though, Hattie, and to anybody else who's thinking about expressing before they have their baby, please remember that your milk supply is driven by milk removal after the baby is born. Everything you do beforehand does not have an impact on what happens afterwards. Oh, brilliant. She says they're 1. Fantastic. I thought 10 was a bit big. That's much better. 10 would be impressive. Just bring a couple. Don't bring any more. If you're filling them, don't bring it. Just bring 2, and that will be fine. If we need your partner to rush home and get some, hopefully you don't live sort of on the borders, miles away, then it's completely understandable. She's put a hook on it. It's very easily done. Don't worry. But I was just thinking, wow. 1ml syringes is what we would normally use, because that's much more like what we're used to. And I've talked about this on here before about how big is a baby's stomach when they're born. A baby's stomach when they're born is tiny, absolutely tiny. It really is minuscule. So don't bring much in. 1-2 mils will probably be plenty. If you need more, then we'll send your partner home to go and get more, but hopefully you won't, because what you're going to do is you're going to be feeding and expressing if you need to express after the baby's born, because your milk supply is driven by everything you do after the baby is born. Your placenta being in situ stops you going into full milk production. It stops it. So it's keeping your milk as colostrum. Once the placenta is delivered, it's a hormonal change, and that allows for milk production to start, which is why we see this big increase in milk as long as it's asked for. And that parallels the stomachs of a baby. And I know I've talked about this lots of times. So a newborn baby, day 3, about a week. So it's gone up really quickly. And the milk supply mirrors that as long as we ask for it. So just because you've got colostrum before you've had your baby doesn't mean you can think that's fine, I don't need to do anything once my baby comes. You do really, really have to keep going. So if your baby is going to the breast, feeding well, it may only be 3 feeds in the first 24 hours if your baby's been born at term and healthy and a good weight, we've got no concerns. 3 feeds in the first 24 hours is quite normal. Then 5 feeds in the second 24 hours is normal again. But from then on, we'd be expecting a minimum of 8 feeds every 24 hours. They're going to be frequent and not regular. So I spoke to a lovely couple earlier, and they were telling me their baby's awake lots in the night and sleeps loads in the day. And I said, that's completely normal. And that's what babies will often do. So those 8 feeds, minimum 8 feeds, may have a huge amount of them in the evening, in the night, and not so many in the day, and that is really very normal baby behaviour. It does change, it does get better. Your baby does learn about day and night, and you will find that you are up in the night less after a week or 2 or 3, but in the first few weeks you will find your baby is doing a lot of feeding at night, and that's very normal baby behaviour. So thinking about that, so from the point of view of the stomach sizes, the milk supply increases in line with the stomach sizes as long as you ask for it. It's that whole thing that your body's never going to bother making something if you don't need it. So your body's not going to use energy to make breast milk if you haven't asked for it. So you do have to keep asking for it. You have to either have the baby really doing a great job of removing the milk, or you're backing it up with expressing. So even if you have got pre-expressed milk that you've brought in because you were expressing beforehand, don't think you can have a night off, because you really can't, because it really will impact on your milk supply. Have you got any more questions? It's very quiet today. I can see there's quite a number of you watching. I'm sure that not all of you have asked some questions. And if you're sitting there thinking it's a silly question, as I said earlier, I'm sure it isn't. If you're thinking it, there will be lots and lots of other people thinking it. And we know these get watched, these sessions get watched afterwards. And we know that they're seen, so people are, looking at them, and there'll be someone watching them thinking, oh, I wish someone had asked that, and that'll be your question. Charlotte's come up. Hello, Charlotte. I owe you a hello from last week too, as well. I'm sorry I missed you as well. She's saying, am I keeping safe and well? And Alicia has 3 teeth now. Well done, you. That's fantastic. Charlotte's one of our regulars. It's lovely to see these names popping up. It's so nice to see you all, and getting the updates as well, and seeing how these babies are growing and changing, and how well you're doing with them in these difficult times. I keep talking about La Leche. I've talked about La Leche a lot today. They're such a good organisation. I've got a number of people that I've suggested that contact La Leche, because they do support, mother to mother support, and do mother to mother chats and groups, and accessing OBS. And some of you, if you're out there and you're you haven't had your babies yet, look up OBS, because they're running antenatal groups, and so is the Abingdon Baby Cafe. So there's an antenatal session coming up run by Sue Richards. She's from Abingdon Baby Cafe. Go and have a look. And if Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support are doing some sessions as well, go and have a look. If you're one of these antenators, one of these ladies who's expecting at the moment, has been contacting us, you might find you can go and get onto a nice a class that will give you some more information. And I would access anything you can, because we will all say things in slightly different ways, and so for some people one person's way of saying it will work for you, and another will work, will be better. So do make the most of it. I can see a few more questions coming through. Let me just see what they are. So Holly has asked, do you have any tips for offering a bottle? Yeah, we can do responsive bottle feeding. I've done that a couple of times today in sessions that I've done earlier on with direct with mums. So I'm going to stand up so I don't have to move the camera. So when we talk about bottle feeding, we talk about responsive or paced bottle feeding, and that's having the baby in, close and upright. And that we take the bottle and we brush the baby's lips to get the baby to gape. So when we say a gape, we mean the baby opens its mouth and drops its tongue. So the baby gapes, they go like this, and drop their tongue. So they drop their tongue because you've told them they're going to be fed, and then you introduce the bottle. And ideally, the bottle is as horizontal as you can get it, making sure that what's in the baby's mouth is full. Not the whole teat. We don't need it like this. If the bottle is like this, it's going to keep pouring. If I had anything in this, it would keep drip, drip, dripping, and the baby has to feed at the speed of the bottle. That's really hard for the baby because it means they can't have a rest. And anyone who's breastfeeding will tell you that babies feed and pause and feed and pause. And a baby who's bottle feeding needs to do exactly the same. So it's making sure that the bottle is as horizontal to the ground as you can get it. But as the milk gets less and less, you're obviously going to have to go up. It's being aware that when the baby's had a long pause or stopping, that you might want to just take the bottle out and give the baby a chance to think, have I had enough? Because we tend to offer a similar amount when mums are offering milk in a bottle. I was talking to a couple earlier and they said they're always offering 70. Now, baby's not always going to want 70. We don't always, you don't, I don't always eat the same amount at every meal time. And babies are exactly the same. And feeding so much more than just food, remember, they're doing it for comfort as well. And that's normal. So they might just want a little bit. And then other times they want a really big meal. So having your baby, the key things about it are having your baby in close, upright, brushing for a gape, and then introducing the bottle into the open mouth and keeping it as horizontal as you can, making sure what's in the baby's mouth is full. And then as there's less and less, moving it up so they're not getting air. And that tends to be what we call paced or responsive bottle feeding. And babies seem to be much happier that way. They can control the flow. They don't overfeed as much. And they're much calmer when they're being fed, and they can pause when they need to. Have a go with that and see how you get on. Just nipping back up because I've seen a fair few come through. So that's for Holly. I hope that helped, Holly. Donna Marie's come back. Embarrassing question. Does having big nipples mean feeding will be harder? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It can be slightly more difficult if they're very big. But we think most babies will cope with what they're given. So if you've got concerns, then we can have a chat beforehand. But if they're in the realms of normal, then the likelihood is that it probably won't be a problem. I'm not sure where you're having your baby, Donna Marie, but maybe it's a case of getting in touch with us if you think there is going to be a problem, and we can have a chat before you've had your baby. Let us know. But normally we'd say mums and babies are normally reasonably well matched. We do get a few that are mismatched, but usually they're well matched. Hattie's come back saying, I have a rubbish back. Do you have any good positions on how to feed at the beginning that won't put pressure on my back? I've been told not to hold in arms and try using pillows. Just wondering if you had any more. We probably would say to you the upright position, actually, Hattie. So that we'd normally say when you're feeding, let me just tip that camera a little bit again. Let me find something to pop behind it. So just move it forward. So it'd be having the baby in an upright position, so sort of here. So what you do is you sit, you put the baby over the leg, so they're like riding a horse, and you hold your baby here. So the way that you hold the baby is you have your fingers around the back and thumbs around the front, and you bring your baby on in that position. So if we had breasts there, they'd be here, coming on like this. And that allows you to sit in a chair without being crouched forward. What we find is a lot of mothers who feed in the cross cradle position, in this sort of position, often end up all hunched over, which is going to be really bad for your back. But a more laid back position or an upright position might be better for you. And if you look at someone like Nancy Moorbacher, she's an American lactation consultant. As far as she's concerned, every mother should feed in a position that's laid back, that if she wanted to, she could take her arms off and the baby would be fine. So she believes every woman should be laid back and the baby should be laid on them. And again, that would support your back. So maybe have a look at some of her work. I think she's got a I know she's got a Facebook page because I've messaged her on it before to ask for some support for a mother. So having these laid back positions or upright positions rather than what we tend to think is the more traditional cross cradle positions might be better for you. So you can have a look at those and see how you get on with those. So yeah, I mean, again, asking for help, putting it in your care plan, in your birth plan, or what was it called? Birth plan, putting it in your birth plan, saying, I've got a bad back, please can you help me to feed in an upright position or a laid back position rather than cross cradle. Normally the first feed would be in a fairly sort of semi-reclined position anyway. Mothers will be, in the delivery room, they'll be leaning back on because the bed's up and sort of like semi-reclined, and the baby will just be lying on them, and so that would be a good way for your back too. Any of those positions would protect your back. I think anything that involves you having to hold the baby and take the weight of the baby is going to be more of an issue. That's why the upright position is great, because all you're doing is you've got your hands around your baby, and even newborns can do it this way. and the weight of the baby is sitting on your leg like they're riding a horse. So that might help you. And see how you get on with those. But it might be worth putting it, as I say, in your birth plan to be helped that way. Amy has come and said, do you have to be from Oxford to attend these or contact for support when the time comes? Baby not here yet. I'm from Oxford now, living in Milton Keynes, and unfortunately we do not have anything at the moment over here. Only offered for online pre-recorded videos as antenatal classes. I find your videos and support amazing, the only comfort I have at the moment. Well, we're offering attend anywhere calls as well, so we can do those, but as a team. We do have people who come out of area into our clinics. So, I mean, if you contacted us and when you needed a clinic appointment, we'd book you in. And Oxfordshire breastfeeding support have no boundaries either. So Oxfordshire, La Leche, Abingdon Baby Cafe, I don't think as such have any boundaries nowadays with so much online support. And if you really needed an appointment at the breastfeeding clinic, we wouldn't turn you away. So, get in touch if you need us. And obviously these things, I mean, they again transcend all boundaries of trust. And we've actually been supporting a lady in Australia recently as well. So talking to her, so that we don't mind. We'll support you as best we can. So good luck with that, Amy. I can see some more coming through. Charlie has said, what's the best way to swap from breast to bottle for when I return to work? Are there any specific bottles you recommend? I have a store of breast milk in the freezer for when he starts nursery, but baby has so far not been keen on the bottle. That's often the way. I'm afraid they love the breast. Usually we'd normally suggest that you see if you could get a partner to do it, that it isn't you, because the baby's going to be at the breast. You're going to have the baby there with your bottle, and the baby's going to be going, but I want it from here. They're looking for your breast. So we often suggest that maybe do that. Don't do it when the baby's hungry, because that's going to really put stress. So let the baby try at times when they're not really hungry. Try and preempt to feed before they're before they're desperate for them. That would be much better. Just try making it fun. I know that's difficult with the baby, but just don't let it become a battleground. If it becomes a battleground, you're really not going to win. So just try little and often, seeing, without any pressure on the baby to take the feeds, and just giving the baby opportunities to try and see how you get on. And the thing with, we're going back to work, depending on the sort of work you do, but very often mums find that they really love to keep breastfeeding going, and so they keep breastfeeding going maybe morning and night, depending on the type of work you do. And then in the day, the baby gets bottles of express breast milk or whatever you're giving, but it keeps that breastfeeding relationship, which is so unique, because when you go back to work, it's such a challenge to hand your baby over to somebody else. That's such hard work, when it's your baby. And this is the one thing that you can do that nobody else can do. So many mothers really, really love to hang on to breastfeeding, even if it's only morning and night, because that's what fits in with them working, and the rest of the day the baby gets something else. So that's one of the things we do love to say to parents is, it isn't an either or. When you go back to work, it doesn't have to be the end of breastfeeding. So just thinking about that. But I think with regard to getting a baby to the bottle, getting a partner to try at times when your baby's not hungry. Keep it an enjoyable experience. Don't let it become a battleground, because you're not going to win on that one. Good luck with that, Charlie. That's hard work. Nikki's come back. What would you recommend for a baby to gate when they're crying? Fleur will get quite upset sometimes if I change her in the night, and then when it comes to feeding afterwards, she takes a while to open properly and go on, and having to remove and try again, and both end up wet. One side more tricky than the other. Oh, it is difficult, I get it. Trying to calm her down, just any of those things that we do to calm babies up and calm her before you put her on, and trying to be really quick to get her down to the breast, brushing her against the lip, her upper lip, against the nipple, so that she knows she's going to be fed. And often what they'll do, they'll cry, and then you'll hear that and then you'll get them on, because that's that quick pause you get, and quickly get them on. Having a muslin ready for that leak, because I think you're there with so many other mothers who get quite drenched at times when the baby's struggling to get on. And she'll learn that you're going to feed her. She's not going to. She'll learn that she can wait a moment or two. She might be a little young at the moment to realise that it's definitely coming, and you're not going to leave her without food. So it will get better in that respect. So maybe just anything that calms her. Even a finger can be really handy. Just pop a finger in her mouth, calm her down, then get her to the breast. I often, when I'm working with mothers in the breastfeeding clinic, if we've got a baby that's really upset, we'll get a finger in the mouth, get that baby as close as we can to the breast, slide the finger out, get the baby on the breast so they almost don't have time to cry. It was much easier when we used to have partners come into clinic, which obviously we can't do at the moment, but that's something that you can be doing at home if you've got a baby who's really upset. And you've got the baby in the right place, you don't want to move them, ask your partner to have a lovely clean finger, obviously it needs to be nice and clean, biggest finger they've got into the mouth, pad side up, so it goes in that way. Let the baby start, calm down, slide the finger out, get the baby on the breast. It might just buy you a few seconds to see if you can get the baby on without them getting too upset. So moving on, hope that helped. Charlotte's just come back again. I just want to say that all the midwives at Chipping Norton and the J Hospital are amazing, and also I can't wait till all this lockdown ends, as I want to take baby Alicia swimming as she loves it. Oh, I bet. Yeah, hopefully that will happen soon. Hopefully after, when they let us know what we're going to be allowed to do over the Christmas period, it would be nice to know. But thank you for your nice comment, Charlotte, and I will make sure the other midwives know too. It is lovely to know that you've had such good times with them. Amy's come back saying thank you, that's really helpful and comforting to know. And Charlie said thank you, I'm still planning on breastfeeding out of working hours. Great, and that's what I was hoping you'd say, because some people seem to think it's either or, and I think, again, going back, I keep harping back to how things have changed. When I had my babies, if breastfeeding didn't go particularly well, firstly, there wasn't really many places to get any help, and secondly, people just thought, well, then you give up, you don't do anymore. And nowadays we know that we maximise on breast milk. So if a baby has struggled with breastfeeding, or a mother struggled to get her milk supply, we will maximise on breastfeeding, give as much breast milk as we can in that baby, and we do as much breastfeeding as we can. We try and really work to make it work for that mother and baby, because we know that any breast milk is beneficial. So we would never choose to say, oh, you can only do one or the other, which is, I think, what people used to be told. And actually many mothers find themselves doing a bit of both, and that's the better option than not doing any at all. I think we've mentioned on these sessions before as well that breast milk is full of enzymes and digestives and things that help break down the milk. It's being given to the baby in a way that helps them break it down. So, and this fits in with this business of not giving other foods up to the age of 6 months, because some of the things that change in the breast milk, and it's continuously changing, is that amylase appears as you get nearer to 6 months, and amylase allows babies to break down starch, and it isn't there before that. So anything that's starchy that you would give your baby, like me, if you were weaning your baby at 3 months onto other foods alongside breastfeeding, if I gave my baby anything starchy, well, they couldn't break it down because it didn't have the right enzymes, whereas breast milk is so clever and intuitive and changing all the time to meet the baby's needs that it's increasing lysozyme near 6 months, which is an antibacterial, and it's increasing things like amylase that helps break down starch. So the body's getting ready for that change in food and giving the baby the tools to make the most of it. So it is really important to think about why we're making these changes. Anyway, so moving on. Nikki's come back and said thank you, and Laurie's come up. She's 37 plus 4. Oh, term. I'm worried that I'll not have any colostrum when I give birth. I haven't been leaking as others say they did. Something wrong with me. Many thanks, Betty. Betty, no, you're not. We're all different. Some leak, some don't. Some leak after birth and some don't. So what we would normally say, good indicators are, and the questions that we tend to ask mothers are, did you have any breast changes in pregnancy? Were you aware maybe of getting a bit more tender in the early weeks of pregnancy? Often it's the first thing people notice before they even take a pregnancy test. And did you maybe get slightly bigger? You don't have to get much bigger, but just slightly bigger. So usually it's a bit more tender and just a little bit bigger. If you can say yes to both of those, then the likelihood is that you're going to have no problems. And nearly everybody can say yes to those. A few people don't. And that might ring alarm bells, but not many people say they didn't get either of those. And we're not looking for big cup size changes. We're just looking for a bit of change. So that's your body getting ready. Because breasts actually aren't mature until you've had your baby. Every woman who hasn't had a baby has not had mature breasts. So it's the maturing of the breasts is through pregnancy and lactation. So if you've had that slight change of slightly more tender, slightly bigger, then actually that's what we'd be looking for, and that would be really, really reassuring. So Please don't feel concerned, because you're with many in that you haven't noticed, you haven't seen yourself leaking. So many people don't leak, and that isn't an indicator at all. I can see a whole load of messages coming through. Let me just go and have a look at these ones. Xenia has said, my baby's just past 8 weeks, and for a few days she's been only feeding around 15 to 20 minutes. Before she was on both breasts for around an hour, and now she only takes one for that short time. Is there something to be worried about, or still gets what she needs once? So Xenia, we know that a baby may feed anywhere between 5 and 40 minutes, and babies do often get a little bit more efficient. So what you might be finding is that your baby's doing what they need. What we'd be suggesting is you look at her poos and wees. So what are they doing? Are your baby's poos and wees what you'd expect? So assuming your baby is over a week, then we would be thinking your baby's going to have two £2 coin size yellow poos. So literally it covers this sort of space on the nappy in yellow or more, and that you have 6 heavy wet nappies, so that if you've got a clean nappy from the packet and the nappy you've taken off, and that you feel the nappy that you've taken off the baby and you go, yeah, I can feel that's heavy in comparison to that one. Or if you're not so sure, go and get a clean nappy, put 2 tablespoons of water in it and feel it, and feel how heavy, and then compare it to a nappy you've taken off the baby. So what we're looking for is output. That's our reassurance, that we're looking to see that the baby carries on pooing and weeing. They are what we call our reliable signs of milk intake. The first reliable sign of milk intake is that the baby goes on the breast. They go on and they go chomp, 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 and then you see them go into big, deep sucks with pauses, and you can probably hear a bit of swallowing, and that can be anywhere between 5 and 40 minutes of feeding. And then that's number 1. And then we've got the poos, that we're looking for yellow poos, 2 minimum a day, and that we're looking for 6 heavy wet nappies a day. And then the weight. And I know weights are difficult, because many of you out there are finding it difficult to get your babies weighed. There are some clinics running. Contact your health visitors to see if you can get your babies weighed. You don't need to have them done too frequently if you're not worried about the weight. Please don't, I know some people choose to buy their own scales, and many of you have. Please don't get into the trap of weighing them too frequently, because that can really raise anxiety levels. Once your baby's gaining appropriately, once the midwives have discharged you, once a week is absolutely the maximum that you need to be doing, as long as your baby's been gaining well up until the time you were discharged by the midwives. So looking at the poos and the wees are a really, really good indicator without ever having to look at a set of scales. So I hope that's helped you, Xenia. So, yes, a baby can do all it needs in that period of time, and maybe your baby's just become much more efficient, really got the attachment right, really milking the breast well. But watch the poos and see what they're doing, and the wees. Charlotte's come back and said, keep safe, everyone, and we can get through this together. Got to see you all soon, and I can't agree with you more. I think we're doing well, and it's lovely to hear about these vaccines coming through, giving us all hope. Great news on those as well. Betty's come back. Thank you. I can say yes to both of those. Thank you. Brilliant. I'm so glad. As I said, most people can. Very rarely that people say no, nothing at all, and that would ring an alarm bell. Well, it's 28 minutes past. Unless anybody's got any more questions, I might think about signing off. I'm really rather hoping that next week it will finally be me and Naomi together again. It's always easier when there's 2 of us, one to read the questions and one to help answer. So it's a bit more fluid, and it runs a bit clearer, and without my halting looking at the questions. But thank you very much to all of you for the questions you've put through. These sessions wouldn't be worth it otherwise. I hope you found them beneficial. And keep on coming and asking the questions. Access the help wherever you need it. Remember that breastfeeding is a learned skill. It takes time. What we know has changed over the years. What I was told in the 90s is very different to what people are being told now. So if it isn't the same as what maybe your family were told and are telling you, then let me tell you that we are talking about the latest research and the latest understanding about what babies need and what mummies need, and that we are trying to make it as good as possible for all the families out there and give you the best information we can. So I know it can be difficult if it doesn't always agree with what you're hearing from other people. Anyway, thank you very much to one and all for all your questions, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.